open discussion. Anybody wish to carry on with anything that you're inclined to discuss here?
Abraham, Nevada.
Hey, you're back with us, Abraham.
I've been listening intently the entire time. I really think that at some point we've got to corral the initiation of putting up the URL with the documents and having people affix their interest by putting their or signing or fixing their name that they are an established qualified elector, justice of the peace, town constable, and start to flesh that out so that we start having these entities, or personages throughout the entire country start to form, so we can get that snowball rolling before we all grow old and die.
Your point is well taken. I thirst for getting a nice community of committed people. This is a lot of why I like keeping a finger on the pulse, and I'm currently entangled a little bit more in the Beacon 37 Republic groups because there's
Can I run it by Louis? Is Louis still on the line?
Louis, are you here?
I am.
Louis, me and Charles were talking the other day, and about the qualified elector, the town constable, and the justice of the peace. Like everybody we have on the line, and perhaps our extended, people that we know that are familiar with what we're doing, and just start having a drive to get these names affixed to these documents online, so that as we start to expand or point to other people to come and see what it is that we're doing, we have something that stands out, that the result of our efforts are showing that we are a community with X amount of town constables, X amount of qualified electors, and X amount of justices of the peace, and it's in a tangible, viewable form, so people can come in and get screened and then start to develop that rank and file, so that this doesn't just become a pontificating academic pursuit.
I've got some feelings on that outside of the officers that I think that should, agree to have their name, publicized publicly on the internet. Other than that, I think that we are private.
That?
What's that?
How would we discuss that so that we can kind of come to a perspective that makes sense for anyone, so that those reservations are addressed and somehow handled?
I think that's done locally. I think that's a local issue, Abraham. I think that's local at least at the county level. As to, many county officers, I believe, and this is just a belief of mine, that those that step up into an officer position, whether it be at the county or the state level, or even at the national level, actually relinquish a bit of their sovereignty once they assume a particular office, because there's a certain responsibility.
Are we
What's
speaking
that?
Are we speaking about an inherent limitation by identifying with that quality? I'm a little puzzled.
Well, I don't know if I would consider it that. It's just that, as each of the counties and state governments, on the way up to nationally and starting at the township level, identify their officers.
Question, Louis, does it have to be qualified locally? Can it be general, or when you go ahead and identify with the character, does that mean it's?
No, I think it needs to be qualified local. I don't think that a national entity would have the authority to dictate to a local township or county, their actions, and the fact that if someone assumes a certain office, what's public and what's not. I think that that's certainly something that's done on
how about something like a drive? Louis, how about something like a drive to get the rank and file up and running before it actually goes kinetic, before it actually takes root? But at least have the semblance or the form of the thing starting to be fleshed out, and just say that it's in a what do you call, like a holding pattern, but when names are being affixed to rank and file, and then at some point we pull the trigger on the thing, figuratively speaking, and then it can go kinetic once we figure out those other details. Is that something that might be workable?
Not even a holding file. Let's call it interim, or whatever term might be appropriate. But make it actionable now. The point is that I don't think that it can be a top-down dictatorship where we're going to say this is what each of these townships or county governments or state governments need to do. I think that those decisions
I'm firmly against anything top-down. I agree with you 1,000% there.
You can put that out there as a suggested format, but again, and then each at a local level, they have these type of discussions, and when authoring, whatever documents that they would like to, which are really agreements, that they would like to enter into with their elected officials, that is something that's at the local level for what information is going to be presented publicly. Is that what those
three characters become, elected officials?
Yes, I think they are elected officials. A township constable is an elected office. A justice of the peace is an elected office that one has assumed they're elected to. So there's some limitations there.
How do we grow without having some sort of a form starting to take shape so that, as we start to magnify and multiply, which should be starting to move in that direction, how do we point to say this is what we're doing and this is where we're at right now and these milestones have already been achieved when we don't have a rough outline materialized yet? I don't mean an outline as an academic. I mean an outline as in, the rank and file is absolutely there and visible. I'm a little puzzled as to how we start to develop traction and starts to feel like we're on a slippery slope and can't get that traction that we need to invite other people in to see a credible enterprise, if that's the right word, starting to develop. Because Charles has been hammering the elector.
I don't see that, Abraham, if I may, I don't see that as a necessary component at all. I don't see that prospective members being able to see the rank and file of an organization to know that there are bodies here or people here as being relevant. I think that there can be growth without that. To me, it's the follower thing. That's the follower thing. I will join this if there are other people here. Who else is a part of this action?
Okay, I get it, but how about if you have a baseball team, but you don't assign any numbers and there's no positions on the field, but you say you have a baseball team? How does that?
But that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. See, because I've had and I don't know if you have had the discussions with the FBI investigating you.
Oh no! I really like to stay away from those discussions.
Okay, well let me share with you. I've had that. They've knocked on my door with the agent who's responsible for this territory and admit to me that he monitors social media accounts, has been for extended period of time, was aware of the Michigan General Assembly, was aware of the divisions when the original Michigan General Assembly divided. They knew what the reasons were that were being presented on calls on their end. They did not know the reasons on my end. So I invited them to present to me any evidence that they chose to share with me. And I presented it in that manner because I had just, no kidding, I had just watched a YouTube video on Malcolm X being visited by the FBI. No kidding. No, exact. At the time, I had just finished watching this video where he had been practicing speeches, and his those associates had suggested that he record his practice, and during the practice, it was interrupted by a visit from the FBI seeking information on the beef between he and Elijah Muhammad. So because it was so fresh when they knocked on my door, right, I went immediately with what Malcolm X did. I mean, I had just finished. I literally had to stop it to answer the door. And because I've worked from my home office for over 15 years, I have a sign on my door that says, "Don't knock on my door. don't ring the doorbell. I have 2 pit bulls. So, and I've always had pit bulls over 30 years. So I said, if it's a delivery, put it between the door and the screen door. Call or text this number. I post that at the start of my day, remove it at the end every day. I've been on my home over 3 decades. The mail people know me. So when they knocked on my door, I had an attitude like, who in the hell is not reading my note?
Right.
You understand? I said, don't knock on my door. Who are you? And I go down and open the door with the attitude like, who in the hell? And it's the FBI with a training. This particular agent has a training. And this agent is known by other members of the Wayne County Assembly. I soon find out that this guy has been, they've subpoenaed him to court cases. He didn't show up. Why? Because his name is not his. They operate under an alias. It is not their true name.
Well, then help me to understand something, Louis. Then how do we go from where we're at to having several hundred members that are bona fide in multiple states across the nation, so that there's a credible structure that can start to move forward in a capacity that's recognizable to have some sort of an effect where we're operating in a real form rather than kind of academically reviewing the thing constantly. I'm a little puzzled.
My opinion is you identify those, which I've done and started having those conversations in the Wayne County Assembly and Michigan Republic calls, identifying those that are reachable. See, I don't do face-to-face at this time. So when there were others in the Wayne County Assembly that were veterans and wanted to meet with those with the veterans, and there were other specific populations, you identify those numbers, where they are, how you're able to.
When you're talking to groups and you're explaining what it is you're trying to do, because there's a lot of merit to the body of information we're working with, and I tend to think that it is doable if we can achieve what you call critical mass. But how do you speak to other entities or organizations and say, this is what we're working on, this is the idea that we have as a pattern, and we'd like to develop this pattern, and we'd like to see if you'd like to, throw in with us to make this happen. And they say, okay, where are you at in your structure? Where are you positioned so we can see how farther we are from the goal? What do we got to do to get closer to achieve, the objectives? Then how do you point to anything structural? You just can't say, come to this meeting, this Saturday meeting, and then all will be revealed, because there's not enough tangible structure that's fleshed out. So how does that happen? Not a loss.
Well, you're asking me to answer a question that you've got literally number of groups across the country trying to answer this very same question right now. And if I had that answer, the Beacon 37 Republic group wouldn't be, in their position. The union call wouldn't have happened. All of these things, these efforts that have taken place over the last decade, we would have an answer to. Abraham, we don't have the answer to that. The reality is this, in my opinion, I can only give you my opinion over my involvement with this, and there's some realizations that we have to come to. Number one, there's some people that are going to protect their position, so everyone that you present this to will not come aboard. Recognize and realize that. Secondly, if we can target a number like marketing and the sales groups, I know you've got a background in, of simply 2%. I did some examples on our Wayne County call of what would happen if we had 1/2 of 1%. And please believe me, just with 1/2 of 1%, we can effect change. Just with 1/2 of 1% of a particular population. One man, again, was a veteran. I said on Wayne County, looked it up based upon the last available census statistics. There were like 83,000 veterans in Wayne County.
Okay.
Target that group and obtain 1/2 of 1% of that group. Okay, there were others that I looked at in terms of household, and because I don't do the face-to-face thing, I looked at broadband internet access, high-speed broadband internet access, so they're accessible, and they can also review any information that we send. If we can just reach out and touch 1/2 of 1% of that population, You do get it. But that's what I think that we need to be focused on.
Okay, but hold on one second real quick. So let's say, I'm an automotive engineer, and I got this idea for building a fantastic car. I mean, it's got all the elements of a perfect engineering design, and it's on the paperwork. It's all in diagram and schematic. And if somebody says, hey, I love the idea of that car, and I want to put my efforts and my skills into helping build that car, and says, where are you so far? Well, all you'd be able to show them is a couple of schematics. You don't have the bumper, you don't have the wheels, you don't have the frame. There's nothing actually tangible. So how do you make the jump, from something that's schematic, something that's in the paper world, in the abstract, and then be able to point to something? Well, we got the wheels, we got the frame, we got the structure. We just need you to help us put the windows and the doors. How do you flesh the thing out if you don't have anything that's in the real world that's actually being formed?
See, the real world, that's I think it's a thing of definition. You gave me an example of commerce. I don't use real world as a different definition. You've got to use a world of commerce or public versus private. So how do you do it? So if someone's coming to me with that scenario, they don't know anything about the private, and I'm trying to hand them off to someone, I swear to you, I'm trying to hand them off to someone that has the ability to handhold them while they go through their education of, listen, there's a duality here, okay? It's not just, you have a dual personality whether you know it or not. You have a public persona and you have a private persona. And that starts with someone that has the ability to handhold and walk one through that, because that's where they are, and I'm not there. I'm not that man to do that. So we need a committee or something, a welcoming committee, a hand-holding committee. I don't know what you want to call it, but every community would need some type of committee or board that has the ability to engage the newbie that's looking for, hey, did you know this? And we're like, yeah, we knew that. All of this is brand new to them.
If you build it, they will come.
I got you. There still needs to be a welcoming committee. Let's call them that. That has the time to handhold those newbies as they become awakened.
I don't know. I think that if you get in that car and you understand basic driving principles and you look at the manual, and if the car is engineered properly, there's not going to be a whole lot of handholding. You just go in there, turn the key, push the gas, and go.
I think that social media was originally social surveillance while it was in production until they decided to present it to the public. Then they rebranded their social surveillance program as social media. As such, any additional information that you're providing online, you're self-snitching. Why do it? Why put those people in you're putting a target on people. Now, those that decide, hey, I'm going to step up as an officer, and I am prepared if the de facto and any agency of the de facto knocks on my door for a conversation. That's a particular population within our group. Okay? All the others, I don't want to put that target on them. They're not ready for that. Why do it?
Right. Darn. So if you wanted to have a motorcycle club, as an example, you put together a motorcycle club, you got 1,500 members, like the Hells Angels, figuratively speaking. They've got thousands of members nationwide. I guess they ain't concerned with targets on their back, but this is a hell of a lot more important than a motorcycle club.
But see, Abraham, that's a good example. I'm quite sure you may be able to go on and find their officers, but you're not going to find a membership list online. Why do that? FBI immediately starts an investigation on every member of the Hells Angels. We know what's here.
There's trepidation all over this thing.
And again, they know our population. The warrant may not even be related to the action. You know what I'm saying? Let's say someone's got a child support issue. You see? Got nothing to do with what we're talking about here. However, we saw your name on this list. As such, we've now dispatch this
Louis,
particular
I
agent.
know you buy into the ideology. I know you feel the thing is credible. I know you think it's doable. I can tell because I've been hanging out with you now for, I don't know, 6 months or longer now. And I get the feeling that you integrally believe that if this thing was where it needed to be, it may be able to do exactly what it set out to do. It's just how do we get from where we're at to where we need to be? Is that the million-dollar question?
It is, but we've got to do it slowly but surely. I just don't think that when you put the membership, and there's a group that did that, as these groups, I think it might have been the Keith Livingston or Livingway group, that as their members completed certain paperwork, they were so happy to have these posted to give a public notice, and I think that was an error.
Those are some brazen, bold people right there. And I'll tell you, they're printing their own money.
Yeah. Well, I don't even want to touch that, but yeah, you're right. And there's some things that people can do to bring attention to themselves. Because I had a 2-hour conversation with the FBI on my porch because I wouldn't allow them into my house, but I did want to hear what they had to say. They want to hear what I had to say. I didn't have anything to say, but I said, anything that you'd like to share with me, and they had a lot to share. And they let me know that, listen, he was responsible for monitoring the Facebook pages in this area and had been doing so for like 5 years before he came up to my porch.
Oh, man.
So, yes, people that were deceased, that were no longer here, what court actions they were, and he didn't, like I said, he was subpoenaed in one man's court action and didn't show because that's not his name. So now we find that out, that they have the ability, just like IRS agents.
Oh God!
Yeah,
I definitely don't want my Facebook page scrutinized.
Well, they do it. So I mean, just know that. And no, I tell everyone, if you've called me, the FBI knows you. Period. The IRS knows you. I've been in court actions with them years ago. So if we've had a conversation and you've conversed with me, you're known because they know me. We've been in court actions. That's how I know certain things. That's why I speak so definitively about certain things. It's not speculative. See, when I've been in a federal court, and the IRS is on the other side, and they're on the other side there in the federal court, you go from, well, I read this web page to, no, this here is fact. And there's certain things that are fact and, other things that are still haven't been proven as fact. So with that, I yield.
Is there any way to do this thing stealth-like so there's no visibility to the outside world until it's ready to land, so that this way we can have the semblance of the structure being fleshed out in a stealth mode until it's ready to come in for a landing? Is that possible?
Can I jump in?
Not in this, and Charles, I'll yield just my opinion on that. Not in this day and age with the technology. I don't think that stealth
that's impossible.
Is possible anymore. I yield.
And call it Candyland.